Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome to another video. It's not about Wootz traditions today, and I wasn't actually planning to make a video, but I'm making a video a little bit out of frustration, really. I've just got back from holiday. I wasn't actually planning to make a video, so this is a bit of a spontaneous one. But I received a few messages recently regarding a particular video on YouTube talking about Wootz steel, and this I've been receiving messages about this video for probably about a year and a half now, 2 years possibly. So it's been quite a long time. I'm not sure when the video came out, but let me give you a bit of a background anyway. So I've been getting loads of messages constantly for about a year and a half, or probably, I don't know how long, it's been well over a year, about this particular video. The video, I've got my laptop here, so I apologize if I keep looking down. So I'm going to try and keep this video quite short. I just want to address some of the questions I keep getting in, and so it stops the questions reoccurring. So yeah, I've got this laptop open here, and the channel's called Knife Steel Nerds, and the video's called Wootz - the True Damascus Steel ? So you can just Google it. I'm not sure if I can do a share of the video, but I wasn't sure, so I've not done that. So I'm just gonna, you guys can just Google, YouTube, search the video. Anyway, the channel I don't know much about. I've seen one of the video, a small snippet of this chap's YouTube channel. He seems pretty good. He seems like he's interested in material sciences. I think he's a metallurgist possibly, and I think there's one or possibly two videos. The only one I've seen is this one called Wootz - the True Damascus Steel. That's the title he's given. It's his video. I know about this video, I think it's about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago. It's been quite some time now. I got to know about this video because the video is about getting some steel, making it into a blade, and testing the quality of this Wootz steel blade. The blade was provided by, the steel and blade was provided by a chap called Spencer Sanderson, who I know, and he was chosen for whatever reason to make the steel and produce this Wootz steel, the Wootz steel blade, for this testing. You can look at the video, but the video basically is lots of different steels being made into blades and tested. I think that's the idea of this kind of series, or this channel. And I'm sorry if I'm butchering all this, but this is what I've got from it. I'm only going to look at the particular Wootz steel video. But anyway, what's happening is I'm getting lots of messages about particular questions or topics or things being stated in that video, and I just keep getting it. It's getting too much. So I'm going to address some of those questions today. So I've gathered some of the questions that I received on social media and email regarding this particular video. I've boiled them down to about 5, 6, as I don't want to spend an hour doing this video. So I'm going to try and address some of the main points. Some of the points I just won't be able to address in this video because it's going to be way too long. So I'm going to address the main ones. I'll give you a bit of a background about me first. So some of you guys might or might not know. My background is I'm a Wootzsmith. I make Wootz steel. I learned from my grandfather. I'm late 40s now, but I learned from my grandfather when I was younger in India. He used to work with Wootz steel for lard, and I've kind of ended up in this field. I make Wootz steel. I own a foundry here in the heart of England. I'm involved in antique arms and armour, historical research and restoration. I regularly do work with institutions and do research on this type of stuff. I'm a practitioner of Indian weapons martial arts, etc., etc. Right? I'm a practicing Sikh, so I regularly carry a bladed item, if you want to call it that, and it's always Wootz steel. I regularly test, make, and research Wootz steel. I've been doing this actively for over 25 years, probably professionally, but I'm kind of born into this field, if you want to put it like that, via tradition, religion, and so on. Okay, we have, what else would support my credentials for this particular video, right? Because I'm just, some random dude on the internet, right? Just talking about these things. I have one of the single largest collections of antique arms and armour which is around 98% Wootz steel. Me and my business, we have the largest Wootz, antique Wootz elemental database, so chemistry database of antique Wootz blades in the world, and that's growing every single week. So every week we add maybe 1 or 2 blades onto that database. I've been researching and adding, collating this data for a very, very long time now. So I have kind of a good idea of what Wootz steel chemistry is, and the performance of antique blades and making the blades, and the historical traditions and new traditions and things like this. I came into Wootz steel from a Eastern tradition, so I was mainly taught from Eastern methods. Last 7 to 10 years, I've been heavily involved in the metallurgical side, so I have access to very expensive metallurgical testing labs here in the heart of England, in the steelmaking part of England. And a lot of my friends are metallurgists, professors of metallurgy at university, and so on and so on. So these are the type of people I hang about with and have access to the equipments and the testing and things like this, right? So hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea. Right, so what questions am I getting regarding this particular video? So let me just set the story straight. The video looks amazing. I think the production value and the way the chap, the knife nerd guy, the way he's put this testing together, it's really quite nice. I really like that. Spencer, I know Spencer really well. At the time of this video, he would have been quite new to Wootz steel, which kind of surprises me a little bit, why he was asked, or maybe he was offered. I'm not sure what the background was. Was it budgetary constraints? I'm not sure. But at the time of the making of that video, he was very new to Wootz steel, right? I'm sure even he would admit that. But let's answer some of the questions, right? So there's a few things claim in that video. I'm not gonna, again, like I said, I'm not gonna do a talk over of the video. I'm not gonna I'll share the link to the video, but you guys can look at these things and listen in. But some of the questions I had asked to me was, and this is not in chronological order of the video, so forgive me. I've just gathered what I had and kind of summed it up into a couple of questions. So one of the questions was, who made the blade, and is the steel Wootz steel? Now, I think I mentioned who made the blade as Spencer, and he's a lovely guy, and he's a very, very nice smith, and he's always progressing to move forward and learn more things. And he does talk to me on occasion, so I think I only spoke to him a few months back or something. He's a lovely guy, and I've engaged with him a few times by the International Wootz Society, which I'm no longer part of. I've kind of stepped down from that thing, but that's another story altogether. But so he produced the steel. He was relatively new to Wootz steel at the particular time, which is always a bit of a concern. And the blade was made by him. The steel was made by him, and blade was made by him. So we know who made the steel. So I think that answered that question. The blade had, so here's another question. The blade tested had inclusions and inclusions. Is that this, and the claim that was made in the video by the host, I think it was the host, the knife nerd, the blade tested had bad inclusions. This was normal on historical blades. That isn't actually true. How do I know it's not true? Because I've over 300 swords in my collection, in my active personal collection. I have over 100 daggers in my personal collection. The vast majority are Wootz steel, and there's a huge percentage of those that don't have inclusions. I have antique blades here with me here from Persia. I have, here's another Persian one. Here's a guitar from India. Don't know if you can see that at all, I'm not sure. You know, and many daggers. Here's one from India, a Wootz steel dagger. This one has no inclusions at all, right? So I'm not sure where that information has come from or why that was said, but no historical Wootz blades did not all have inclusions, and also modern Wootz blades also do not always have inclusions. I've got one here that I'm wearing. and this is one I've made. I carry this one as my everyday carry. It has no inclusions, has no graphitization. So that's actually incorrect, right? So I'm not sure if I'm focused in here. You can still see me, right? So yeah, to answer that question, no, not all antique blades, historical blades had inclusions. And when I say inclusions, I also mean graphitization. So there's reasons for that. There's a huge amount of reasons for inclusions and graphitization. It's not as it's stated in the video about that top layer of the ingot. There's many other reasons for it, but I'm not going to get into that right now. I just want to mention that. Well, actually, I will mention something, because I do need to make the point that things like free carbon in the ingot and high silicon will promote graphitization in those inclusions, and also the processing of the ingot is the failure to process the ingot properly based on the chemistry also will cause those problems as well. But do I have inclusions in my blade? No. In my blades, no. Would I ever let a blade out my workshop that had inclusions? Never. So it's been a very, very, very long time since I had any sort of issues like that on my steel. So no, not all historical blades, and Wootz steel, true Wootz steel, which is what I'm making, doesn't have inclusions, and if they did, they wouldn't be leaving the workshop. Right, so I think I've covered that one. Historical blades had high phosphorus. That's not always the case either. I have tons of analysis from the lab. I have plenty of antique blades. I have a huge amount. I have a single largest database of antique Wootz blade analysis in the world, and I can tell you, based on the analysis that we have, that not all blades had high phosphorus. I can tell you that now categorically. There's many blades that had low phosphorus to very, very low phosphorus. But also, yes, there was blades with high phosphorus as well. The video does show some analysis, and it was like what was it? Here we are. The analysis was 0.13, so that's 0.13%. And that's fine. That's historically correct on some of the old, some antique Wootz blades, not all of them. Wootz steel was very, very varied, very, very varied, right? So we'll talk about the chemistry in a second. But phosphorus, no, not all Wootz steel blades had high phosphorus. Some of them had on par with Japanese swords. Some of them even had lower, right? So same thing with vanadium as well. I mean, I've got antique blade analysis of beautiful watered Wootz blades that have zero detectable vanadium in them. So yeah, just things to be aware of there. Talking about the carbon, the chemistry. The chemistry was fine. I think the carbon was fine from the blade that was being tested. 1.59% carbon was fine. It's within the ranges. The typical Wootz ranges is 1.4 to 1.9% carbon. But the ranges for the other elements also have some strict windows as well. Manganese on that particular blade, the one that was made for this particular research, was 0.18 manganese. I mean, that's not Wootz steel. That you wouldn't have that level of manganese in the steel, right? So you don't have that level of manganese on antique blades. I'm not sure. So you can't call it Wootz steel, right? Silicon is 0.13. That's extremely high silicon, right? So I talked about the inclusions and graphitization in the steel. If you have inclusions and the higher the silicon, the graph is going to increase the graphitization in the steel. Niobium I'm not going to comment too much on. I mean, it is detectable, but it wouldn't have been on most of the blades back in ancient times. Phosphorus, I think the phosphorus level was fine as well. It's on the higher side, but there was the opposite end as well. Sulfur is fine. I think the sulfur level was fine on that particular blade. And the sulfur is quite an interesting thing, because there's some antique blades from particular regions, like some parts of Persia, the phosphorus was slightly high. Sorry, the sulfur was slightly higher, whereas on some Indian blades the sulfur was extremely low. It tells you there's kind of a trail you can follow on the actual antique blades. What else is there? So we've talked about that. I think the sulfur, the phosphorus. I think it's important to mention that it's really important to mention that the research is only showing 6 elements, right? Wootz steel has some very unique elements that need to exist for it to be Wootz steel. Now, this is a bit of a shame that people don't understand this, and it might be partially my fault. I need to get this data out. But there's a group of elements that should always exist in every single Wootz blade, and it's in hundreds of blades that I've tested, these elements always exist. So I'm not talking about the vanadiums, I'm not talking about carbon, I'm not talking about the usual suspects here, right? Even vanadium is not really technically a usual suspect, right? But this is a different, this stuff I'll probably talk about in another video. But what I can tell you is there's key elements that should be stated to call this Wootz steel, and they're not represented in that elemental analysis that's been shared on that particular video. So that's something that is very, very important to mention. We talked about, so we've covered graphitization, we've covered inclusions, we've covered the elemental analysis. So historically, the blades were within particular ranges of chemistries, and those chemistries dictate what is Wootz and what isn't. It's not what I say it is. Historically tells you factually what Wootz is and what Wootz isn't. So there's lack of elements that are visible within those particular steel. I know Spencer quite well, so in the sense that I know at the time when he was producing that steel, and I know his processes now, that the methods, the materials that he's using, you just cannot achieve historical chemistry with those particular methods. And it's not just him, it's a lot of modern smiths. And this is why my background, I also do Wootz steel, I make crucible steel, and I make it very clear that I make both, because there is a difference. But I also have a traditional furnace and I also have a modern furnace. So I understand the deficiencies, the pros and cons of both, and I can tell you categorically that if you're using modern processes and you are using modern materials and consumables, it's very, very unlikely that you're going to achieve historical chemistry. I have the data, I have the research. I've spent the last 3 years in crucible research. I can tell you, and slags, and I can tell you now that it's going to be very, very difficult to impossible. I think another question was raised around slags and glass slags and things like this. These weren't the slags that were used back in ancient times, right? So there's going to be issues occurring with that and the consumables that are using, and it does affect and impact the quality of the steel. A question that was, I don't know if this question was asked, I'm presuming it was asked it was stated in the video. The steel tested is close to historical blades. It isn't. I think I made that very clear. If I take I don't know, a stainless steel, a grade of stainless steel, and I test that grade of stainless steel, I've tested a specific chemistry of steel. I can't taint or comment on every single type of stainless steel. So that's not the right thing to do, right? The steel that was tested in the video was not Wootz steel. If I was to, the chemistry that's been shared is not a Wootz chemistry, and the chemistry that is absent also states that it isn't Wootz chemistry, right? So just something to be aware of. I also want to mention that Wootz steel, Wootz is an Indian word. Wootz is the name given. It's not a corruption of word. It's a term, it's a name given. It's in Marathi, in a central southern language. And that's where that term's come from, right? It's not a corruption of the word uku, it's the term given to this particular steel. So, and the steel came in these ranges, and like I said, the historical blades dictate what those ranges are, okay? So this isn't me kind of pushing what I think, it's what the data states, what the data dictates, right? I think so I think we've covered that. The other question was there was a claim made in the video that the steel couldn't be hardened, right? I've never had that problem ever. Let me start with the antique blades first. What have I seen on antique Wootz blades, right? And considering I'm a martial artist, I've sometimes idiotically used these blades in training, right? So what I can tell you is I've seen antique Wootz blades with excellent hardness. I've seen antique Wootz blades with excellent flexibility, elasticity. I've seen Wootz blades with differential heat treat. I've seen Wootz blades with edge-only hardness. I've seen shallow hardening. I've seen full hardened blades. I've seen Wootz steel blades that is very brittle and very prone to cracking or snapping. I've seen on Wootz blades that the hardness has totally disappeared, right? It's not very hard at all, right? So I've seen every single type of example in historical antique examples. But we need to take that with a pinch of salt because we don't know what journey that particular antique blade has had up to now. So this is why the quantity of data that I put together is quite large. It's hundreds of examples. And I keep adding examples and doing more testing and adding more to that database. And the general consensus is these blades performed extremely well in multiple. So they perform so well that people would risk their life taking a Wootz blade into battle. So I need all the viewers to understand that you know, in ancient times, they had access to mono steels, Bloomsbury steels, Sanmai, pattern welded steel, low carbon, mid carbon, high carbon. They had access to every type of steel you could think of. India, the Islamic world, you know, all these different countries that were making Wootz steel. It wasn't just like you had Wootz and that's it. They had a huge choice of steels and materials. And there was a reason they chose Wootz steel, right? The issues with the Wootz steel that we experience in combat, in training, and in research like this particular video is usually down to the issues with smithing, issues with producing the steel, with the processing of the Wootz steel itself, right? Or even the skill of the actual smith itself, right? So I don't want to say too much about that, right? Because I think everybody's learning and everybody's moving in a particular direction, but it just, you know, people didn't just take something that looked good into battle, right? You know, you wouldn't risk getting cut down or getting your limbs cut off, right? Just because you wanted to carry a Wootz steel blade in battle. I want us to all just remind ourselves that the ancient communities, the warriors, the noblemen, they had access to every type of steel that you would have thought of, you know. So very, very important to make sure that's clear there. So yeah, now moving on to modern steels. Look, I make modern Wootz steel. I don't really want to use Wootz steel that I've made recently. I don't have any problems with inclusions. I don't have any problems with graphitization. I know what can cause graphitization, I know what can cause inclusions, and I avoid all those things together. And also, you know, things about roasting, the term roasting was used in that video. You know, soaking the ingot. There were certain things that just wasn't done back in ancient times, and the processes and the manufacturing of Wootz was totally different to how it is done now. So a lot of the issues we have now did not exist in antiquity. I know that because if I use a modern melting method, I know the pros and cons of that, and if I use an traditional method, I know the benefits of that. So I can tell you firsthand that 90% of the time I'm going to choose to go with the traditional methods. So yeah, on the steel that I make, on the Wootz steel that I made, and you guys have probably seen the Wootz blades or on my YouTube channel or my Instagram channel and things like this, the patterns that I achieve are historically correct, they match historical standards, and they don't have inclusions, they don't have graphitization, they perform very, very well depending on the chemistries that I've gone with for that particular type of Wootz steel. And I carry one every day, right? I use it in training, I use it probably 10-15 times a day as my everyday carry, right? So my blades, they do go through, you know, I'm a practicing Sikh. I cannot go anywhere without my blade, and I use my blade as an everyday carry, right? So, you know, my blades really do get used, and I've never had any problems like that with hardness or hardening my blades. I don't want to talk too much about water quenching or oil quenching or air hardening and things like this, because I don't know, what chemistry somebody would go with, right? But I know I follow traditional standards and traditional practices, and my practices and my traditions work very well, and they produce excellent blades. What else was it? Blades. So we had phosphorus tested historical blades, steel, smithing. I want to actually commend. I think the host of the channel, the Knife Steel Nerds channel. I think they're at the end of the video. He mentions that he doesn't totally understand what could be classed as Wootz steel and what couldn't be classed as Wootz steel. I respect that. I highly respect that he said that, because in the West there is kind of a it is still relatively new Wootz steel, right? I mean, let me give you an example. I'm late 40s now, right? I've grown up since I've been a child around Wootz steel, not just because I'm from a smithing family, but because I'm a practicing Sikh, and swordsmanship and martial arts are part of my culture. I've been around Wootz steel since I was born. One of the traditions in the Sikh, one of the traditions in the Sikh faith is to baptize the child by the sword, right? So I've been around this for a long time. So when I watch videos like this, even though we see the stuff done by Alpendre and Verhoeven, which is great stuff they did, it's still relatively new in the West, right? But even when I look at that data, I still see a lot of issues. I still see certain consumables being used. I see chemistries that they're not matching historical chemistries. Yeah, sorry, I'm digressing there. Just want to say that I think the host of the video has been very honest. I think the only issue I personally had with the video is that you've taken one particular Smith steel who was new to Wootz steel, because I know that, because I know him. He was very new to making Wootz steel, and you've believed that it was Wootz steel, and you've only taken one example and one example blade, which is crazy. I think if I was, a lot of my friends some of my closest friends are professors of metallurgy at university, right? So you do, studies, and you do a multitude of blades to set the standard of a particular steel or a particular material. So I'm not sure why that was done that way. That does kind of confuse me, perplexes me a little bit. I wouldn't have done it that way. Maybe it was a budgetary constraint. I don't know. Maybe it was to do with funding. Maybe the research funding for the research isn't that much. I'm not sure. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. But me personally, if I was going to test Wootz steel, I would test at least several of the chemistries and several versions, several processed versions of that particular chemistry to get a good understanding of what that chemistry is achievable on, right? I wouldn't have just gone for a low manganese, a high manganese, and just quenched it and tested it. I wouldn't have done that way, right? So, but again, I might be speaking from a point of privilege in the sense of I have access to a foundry, I have access to a forge workshops, I have access to labs and things like this, right? So I don't want to say too much on that. I think people have their constraints, and I think the intentions were very, very good with the video. So yeah, look, I think if there's more you want to know about Wootz steel, sorry, I think there's some noise in the background here. If you want to know more about what Wootz steel is, if you want to know about the historical traditions, you want to know chemistry, you want to know things like that, just let me know, and I can try and make some more videos. But the whole point of this video was to stop people sending me questions and stop forwarding this video to me. Look, I think people out there should be doing their thing. They should be going out there and trying new things. But I think everybody has a right to do research, and everybody has a right to find it, to take their journey. I think these guys were doing a good job. I think everybody has good intentions. Yeah, I think, like I said, the whole point of this video was just to kind of stop my followers and people sending me questions regarding particular points in this particular video. So anyway, I'll end the video there. Hopefully I've covered everything, and thank you for watching. Take care. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.